challenges are always there in Bangalore, but if you have reached here in good time, and the others are on their way, so they will be here soon. On behalf of Team Interweave, I'm Nirmala Menon, the CEO of the company, inviting you to this press conference. Now, Interweave as an organization is, I think some of you would already know, is a consulting organization that is focused exclusively on inclusion solutions. We don't do anything else. And this is a 17-year-old organization. And when I started, people said, this is not relevant for India. India is a country of diversity, and what is this? It's a foreign concept. We don't need it. But today we've come to a point where we all realize and understand, and I think organizations understand the value of diversity and inclusion in the workplace. So we've been leaders, and we believe that since we started 17 years ago, we've been pretty much in the trenches, so to say, and seen the market for this develop, and how it's matured over the years. The last 4-5 years have certainly seen phenomenal growth in the understanding and the investment of time and effort in this space. So we pride ourselves on being at the cutting edge of that as far as the Indian marketplace is concerned. And as part of that, hashtag Inclusion Now, our thought leadership flagship conference that we hold every February, is really to advance the thinking on the subject. Now, there are a lot of events. Everybody is talking about best practices, for example, and those are important, very, very relevant. And even today, a lot of DEI conversations are still about what is the business case for it and things like that. So we said, let's just move away from there and look at something that's more futuristic. And that's really how this whole conference concept came up. And we said we'll keep it for serious DEI practitioners. It's about learning, it's about networking. There isn't too much, what might I call, tamasha around it. Yeah, it's just conversations. There isn't a lot of performances or awards and celebrations. Or, we should celebrate and as close to the possible, because that's what we thought was lacking. So every year we pick a topic, and I think today somebody was asking, if he was asking me this question, how do we decide on a topic each year? It usually is from the kind of work we've been doing that year. We look at what the environment is struggling with. We talk to our clients. We debate within the team itself to arrive at what we think is the next thing to be doing in this space. And that's how we arrive at it. So each year we've picked a theme. The last year was the future is flexible. Fluidity. The future is fluid. Yeah. So that's what we talked about. And this year, when we were sitting down and thinking about things, we arrived at this great realization that almost all of our efforts have so far been in trying to fix things that could have been done earlier. For example, an organization will say, we are short on women and women leaders. How can you help us improve the numbers? And then we are running around trying to figure out how to get that done. Or they will say our workplaces are not accessible for people with disabilities. Okay, put a ramp, put this. You could run around and fix that issue. So we said we've been always fixing issues. Now, is there a way in which you can plan for this in advance so then we're not fixing? So, and that's how this whole thought of inclusive by design, was born. So that's how this theme was picked up. Now, if you really think about design, most times people tend to think of it as for a product, and a lot of it is around aesthetics, for example. But if you really look at the term design and look at the expand it a little to look at the dictionary meaning of it, it says it's about conscious conceiving and implement and planning of activities for a particular outcome or for a purpose. So it really is something that can be extended beyond a product to even intangible things like how do you enhance better collaboration in the workplace, the mindset, how do you change mindsets in the workplace, how do you bring in more equity and inclusion. So all of this falls into this, and we said let's look at it from that angle. Around this time was also this fantastic little thing that I read, which sort of deepened our conviction that this is where we should be going, was this little interesting historic fact which happened in the late 1940s, early 1950s with the US Air Force. They found that around that time they were having a lot of accidents. So, which meant that they were getting fewer pilots to fly the planes because it was considered a very risky affair, and they were wondering why, because airplanes had been there for quite a while by then, and there were huge improvements happening. The jet planes were kind of invented at that time, etc. So they kind of thought about this and said, okay, they said it must be pilot error. That's what should be the problem, because the mechanics of the aircraft itself was very good. There were very few mechanical or hardly any mechanical failures. So it has to be pilot error. And the pilot said, look, we are doing our best. We are doing our best in terms of what we need to do. So we don't understand this. So then the Air Force thought about it and said, okay, these were all designed, planes designs were from the 1920s, 26, 30 era. So maybe the size of the people have changed. So maybe we need to redesign our airplanes to fit the current set of pilots. And they went and surveyed about 4,000 pilots and measured them for their torso length, their arms, their legs, and circumference of their head, chest, whatever, some 10 different dimensions that they looked at. And they said, let's take the average of this and create a new airplane and cockpit and all of that to fit. And the problem wasn't solved. Okay? And they were wondering why this could have happened. So again, they went into deeper investigations. And after factoring in for pilot error and poor training and mechanical failures, etc., they concluded that the cockpit was the problem. They said the cockpits were not comfortable for people, and therefore that is the key problem in these crashes. So then the US Air Force said, okay, so if that is a problem, we have to find a solution. Let us, and they told the aircraft manufacturers, we want you to create cockpits that fit the pilot and not the other way around. Okay? Now the aircraft manufacturers balked at the idea. They threw their hands up and said, what are you saying? This is impossible, right? This is not something that we can do, that we have to create something that will fit each of the pilots. So this is a very, very expensive proposition. It's going to take us a lot of time, blah, blah, blah. So the US Army stood firm and said, US Air Force stood firm on this and said, that is our mandate. Go and find us a solution. And a solution they did find rather quickly and fairly cheap and efficient. They came up with adjustable seats. Okay, adjustable seats, adjustable foot pedals, adjustable helmet straps. A whole bunch of things were made more adaptable for the body size of the pilot. And guess what? Accidents came down phenomenally. Diversity of pilots increased because now it could accommodate, different body sizes. Women were able to, get on the, drive planes. So a lot of things changed. Now, what was considered impossible has suddenly become standard, not just in aircrafts, but in almost every automobile industry talks about this. And that is the power of design. If you look at history, design has played a huge role in all our lives. We may not have seen it as such, but pretty much it has decided, it has defined for us what we can access, what we can participate in, contribute in. Think caste system, for example. Think gender role descriptions, right? What men and women can do. And these are all socio-cultural designing that kind of kept things apart and, alienated a whole bunch of people. So this whole idea of inclusion by design came from this thinking that if we pushed ourselves to a corner and said we have to be inclusive right from the start, whether it's a building that we are making or whether it is the policies that we are designing, the environment that we want to create, what kind of ideas can go into it, and how do we make it a more inclusive environment to the extent that we can. So that is the core of this. And this is where the design thinking piece came in. We said, can we use design thinking as a way of creating equity and inclusion, right? And sure enough, there are a lot of examples when you go back and look to see that it is possible. There are, principles of inclusive design that can be used, etc. So we need to bring them in, saying this is how we want it, and necessity is always a mother of invention. We will find ways to make things happen, right? And that is what we hope to explore with this conference. And we will look at multiple things. Like I said, it's not just the tangible things, it's also the intangible things that we will look at. So we will look at, just to tell you about the format of the session, it's a 2-day conference. We have expert sessions on day 1, which is on the 22nd, where we do a deep dive into very specific subjects. For example, we have something on the S of ESG. ESG, as you know, is the framework, the sustainability framework. So the social bit is a very challenging piece because that can't be easily defined, and it's and it's primarily around diversity and inclusion. So we said, let's talk a little bit more about the S of the ESG. There is one on the talent algorithm in terms of using technology for talent management in the workplace. We have something on inclusive products and services, almost like a one-on-one in terms of how can companies design inclusive products and services. And there is a 4th one in terms of creating an inclusive workplace in terms of psychological safety and the rights of employees in the workplace, right? So what can you bring into the picture on that? So these are the deep dive sessions. And the conference itself will focus on the higher level strategic aspects of creating a inclusive work environment, not just in terms of the architecture of the place, which we all tend to understand more easily, make it accessible, put lighting, the format, the layout of the office, etc. But how it also contributes to better collaboration. Can, only the extroverts and the introverts, can they, equally succeed in that organization? Do they have their spaces where they can do their best work? All of that, because again, none of us are the same. The tagline for Interweave says, interweave because we are all different, right? We are all very unique beings, and businesses are going to straitjacket us and say, you all need to conform to what we have. We are not going to be able to do our best work. So it's about being flexible, being able to create a workplace that fits the employees. A workplace, the work technology, the work practices all have to fit the employees that we are bringing in, and that's inclusive by design. So these are the things that we are looking at, and of course we cannot forget climate change in this whole process. Sustainability is a big aspect. So while we are doing all of this, are we also looking out for the planet, right? So that's an important part of what we are looking at. So the concept of design, from just moving from aesthetics, it has moved into usability, reachability, social impact, all of that, right? So, and that's really what we are going to explore. And of course, none of this can happen without sponsors. It all needs encouragement, it needs validation from our clients, it needs some resources as well, and that's what our sponsors do for us. We have 5 sponsors on board, not 5, we have 6 sponsors, whatever, right? So we didn't have to look too far. We set out a message and we had these people, raise their hand and say, we'll support you. Times are not good. People are being very careful with their money. These companies put their hand up. We have Flipkart, that is our title sponsor. We have Vishaka from Publicis Sapient. Publicis Sapient is our platinum sponsor. We have EY. Sorry about my throat. Can you get some warm water? Anybody from EY here? Okay, so EY is our gold sponsor. We have 2 silver sponsors. We have Aman from Sterling Holidays, and we have Grudem Housing Finance that have joined us to be a silver sponsor as well. And it's interesting because these are new sectors that are coming in. It's cold, right? It's okay. It's an itchy throat. When I get passionate about what I'm speaking, it happens sometimes. So thank you for that. I think new sectors are moving into this space, and I think that's a very welcome part of what we do. And then we have MOOC Technologies that has been there right from the start, supporting us with our expert classes. And Margaret is there from MOOC Technologies. So thank you very, very much for your support. Um, you know, it's important, and I think we go with very few sponsors. We don't have a whole lot of them, but that's so meaningful and so relevant for us that we are our heartfelt thanks for enabling this conference tradition for us. Yeah. So I will request Vishaka to say a few words on why she chooses to support us, and a little bit about how the topic resonated for you, and anything else that you would like to share, Vishaka.
That's easy. So I've known Nimi and her work for a very long time. So we are also very careful about people we partner with, just because there's just so much to do. DEI is a space that's never ending. In fact, people at my workplace will say, "Why don't you also take care of your health and everything while we do this?" Right? So we are very very passionate about DEI. DEI is who we are, not just what we do. So picking a partner like Interweave has not been a difficult choice. It's been year after year. You can see the evolution of their work, right? So starting with, I think, initial the women career attorney piece that you used to be known for, and then Handmodium. That's that the entire work around gender is never ending, right? It's just never ending. We are always complaining about how we are losing women at a certain life stage and career level, but the intake of women coming back at the workplace, returning from their careers, is always not an easy topic, right? Even if you have deployed and systematic ways of having these programs, how they are supported, how they are made successful. So it is very important that people evolve their thought process. And in our organization, we truly believe in the bedrock. So if you keep strengthening the bedrock, which is about inclusion, I think everything else comes into play. So we look at the charter every year to say what are we doing towards evolving our equitable practices, because everything has to be systematic, even if you are customizing things uniquely to bring in equity. How are your systems supporting? We are also looking at measuring, looking for diverse talent that we don't have, and that includes different orientation, sexuality, abilities, and disabilities. It also, also bringing in the topic of race and ethnicity within the context of India, and it's not an easy thing, right? So. This is truly what we believe in, which is about inclusion and doing it at real time, where business happens, where people work, and what people experience in a workplace every day and beyond, bringing in the ESG conversation. Businesses, in fact, are not within their boundaries of work anymore. I think the social impact is something we all have evolved to think about every day. So the topic totally resonates with us. The work with Interweave resonates with us. I'm very happy that we do this year on year, because then we can also look at not just gimmicky different things, but really look at deepening our work with partners. And it is very intentional and mindful. Having said that, I would like to introduce the organization. Publis Sapient is a digital transformation organization. If you go online, you will see the depth and breadth of work that we've done. It starts with a lot of insights on our customers. That's how we support our clients to expand their business by getting very rich insights on their customers. What is their need? What is their unspoken need, and more, right? If you also check our website, you will also see different films that we've produced over the last 2 years, which are about an impact of what a digital transformation can do for people. And this is not just clients. So our first film was about how a woman, a single mother in US, who also was a person of color, is a person of color, was going to lose her home, and she got not just a home through the beneficiary process, but actually got a life back and beyond. This year, we actually looked at another scenario of a person with disability, intellectual disability of sorts, and neurodiversity, and how the US prison and legal system got the benefit of digital transformation and was able to truly provide a person with neurodiversity who would have gone to jail and for a long term. an entire system of benefits. So this, when you see this, you will see how strongly we believe in digital for good. I'll stop that and take questions.
Yeah, and I know I completely second what she's saying in terms of some of the fabulous work that they do, and Vishaka truly breeds inclusion. Yeah, and she was just telling me while we were on the dais about some of the interesting things that she keeps experimenting with. They had some of their global heads that had come very recently, and she said, let's talk about the culture of India. They had a lot of global heads from other countries, and she said every meal time they had a different decor and different food just to showcase the different aspects of India. Just a small change, but kind of uh, opens up a conversation. So those are the kinds of things that we have to think about on an everyday basis for inclusion to actually be part of our lives and our organizations, in a sense, interweave them into your current practices that you have. Yeah, so with that, we are open to any questions that any of you might have, or any thoughts that you would like to express.
You want to say Amal and
Ma'am, I have, of course, I joined little bit late.
Okay.
Maybe I don't know, maybe 5 minutes or 1 minute before that. I think basically the conference what you are holding is coming up is employee centric. What I mean, you are taking care of employees' work. Now after the COVID, the hybrid system has come. All the employees in the organizations are now asked to come to the working place, maybe for 2 days in a week or 3 days in a week, and so we have to give them a very comfortable feel because all these days for 3 years or maybe around plus 3 years, they have spent their entire days isolated in the home. Now they are coming to a different world, a working place. That is what you want to give them the feeling that they are not away from the home and yet they are at the workplace. So with this concept, I think you want to have this inclusive by design. So you are going to redesign the working system in a such a way that they should not feel that we are away from the home and yet at the working place. So you have to focus on these terms and you have to throw some light on this particularly because you know that the Indian woman is very psychological and emotional. So many things are attached to that. You know that. Because
So are the
Indian,
men.
yeah, that's the reason. Because,
We are.
yeah, exactly. So keeping all these things in mind, so how that your next inclusive design is going to take place? I mean, the design for future. I will call it as a design for future.
Okay. Great point. And if I gave you that US Air Force example, where they said work fitting and the cockpits fitting the pilot, we are doing something very similar. And just to kind of expand on that, just before COVID, as an inclusion solutions company, talking about remote working, flexible working, etc., was something that we were advocating very strongly with companies. And all of them said, no, we are not ready for this just yet. Okay, it will take us a few years for us to get there. So our company, we can't let our employees are not mature enough. There were multiple excuses. But come COVID, what happened? Without any planning, without any support, no resources, we all went remote, virtual, right? So this is exactly what we are saying. And today it's become almost standard in a sense, right? And as workplaces, they didn't ask their employees to come back right after COVID, saying everybody come back to work. It was over a period of time, slowly. So it was by design. We are already thinking on those lines, right? Because that's what is practical. That's what will work and that's what is sustainable. If you had asked all of them to come back to work at one point, the backlash would have been something we couldn't have handled. So yes, thanks for bringing that point.
I can add to that, right? So just for examples, a lot of this is absolutely thought through. So in our organization, there's no mandate that you have to come back tomorrow, day after, right? It's all, what we actually saw is a lot of people would benefit from coming back, right? Like a lot of women, were being asked to do home chores actually did not connect well with their friends and family, did not have that outlet, sometimes felt that it's all comfortable. At the same time, where is my connection? Where is my stimulation at work? Right? You look at youngsters, a lot of them, last year I think the social anxiety topic was really, spoken about a lot, because now I'm doing my thing at home only with people I'm comfortable with. Then how do I break this barrier? So suddenly, if they're in an office meeting where they want to share an idea, now they've forgotten how to navigate, break through, and share ideas, right? People with disabilities. So I think the first time our email went out that we're happy to get you back. I had a person with disability write to say, "What do you feel about this?" I said, "What do you feel about it?" Because last year we actually did a huge amount of. So we have this concept of geo circles. So we said that if people are not coming to office, and we had people in 120 different cities, we will go to them. So we picked these 13, 14 cities where we had about 200 to 50 people around it, and we would do like a full day, meet, let's understand the culture of the organization and more. And I got a slice of disability confidence work that we did in those circles. So we got our people with disabilities, some partners, we made a film that we thought we'd show, etc., etc. And we had that conversation, and it was so, there was so much of energy stimulation that our people with disabilities who traveled with us, to have this conversation with their colleagues, were wowed, right? So, just think about this. This is a room full of people, 150 people who've traveled from different parts of that city, and they're sitting, and there's a person with blindness who's saying, "I love movies," right? And everybody's like, "Really? How?" And then he explains, I know all the Bollywood and other movies do not have a voiceover. I go to a YouTube channel, I check, what their reviews are. So I basically have the story, and then I go with my family and watch a movie. So look at the connections other people are also making. Now we basically have the same thing coming back to work, right? So we have a huge amount of work that we've done with our leaders, because we work with influencing group first on psychological safety. Now that people will come back, or they don't, or they won't, how do you then help them do this, right? So having done some bit of this work for the last 1.5 years with our leads, we are looking at then specific groups. So in my purview, women coming back from maternity, women coming back to their careers, in general who have caregiving responsibilities. We are actually doing very exclusive coffee meets, etc., with leaders. So they are not losing out on different opportunities, and they're also getting the additional benefit that a diverse talent group would get. Connecting and making communities of LGBTQI people. Even within the LGBTQI people, you will see trans, gender non-binary people feel less understood. Now they've, so like you said, coming back to work, having been at home, being in that shell, I like to hide kind of personality. Now they are, so helping them within these communities is like a big challenge, right? So we've actually run two iterations of what we call rainbow internship, which is only open to trans and gender non-binary people. And then we brought them together, did a boot camp. So it's like one exciting program. People come in. So I've not launched the third iteration this year, and I'm very focused on how to make people successful. But before that, on my desk, I have request of can I get more interns from the community this year, because I think it's thriving within my group. So I can tell you more, but I think these examples might give you a little bit of idea of how organizations are looking at bringing people back, keeping their psychological safety and comfort, and enhancing belongingness.
This 2-day training program, what you said, how many people are we expecting for the training, and what kind of people you are expecting, like working people or non-working people?
Well, it's open to anyone who's interested in the subject to start with. But typically, we have mid-level to senior leaders from HR, from the line, business unit leaders who typically attend. Now, the expert classes are for practitioners primarily. So we have, and it's very limited seats that we have because it's a deeper engagement and interactive session. We have about 30, but usually it expands. The classes tend to expand simply because people say, you know, sorry, please allow us to also participate. So we sometimes increase the strength of the class, but typically it's designed for 30 people. And yeah, and the conference itself has a fairly good mix. Earlier, diversity events used to be attended by women, right? You had almost 90% women. So we've sort of broken that a little bit. Now we have easily about 40% men, and you know we still have more women and more people from HR and the DEI function. But increasingly every year we see more line people attending as well, because this is something that's across the board, and particularly this topic, I think, is something that is relevant to everyone. So we are encouraging project managers and program managers, etc., to be part of this, project designers, to be part of this conversation, opening their minds to a thought that would come in at the right time and, you know, help them ask the right questions. We may not always have answers, but, you know, asking the question is the first way to solve a problem. Yeah.
About 200 people.
But yeah, in terms of numbers, about 200 to 250 people.
Is an inclusive design important or critical in terms of the war for talent? How
Absolutely.
important? Justify it, no? It's a anecdote. Because I'm aware of publicists in your, I mean, during the COVID, we also saw about companies switching over to gender neutral washrooms, the rainbow program, all these things were up. But is it really important?
Shall I
Is it
tell
a
you?
top priority?
Real life, just on my Insta DM, we were interviewing. You know, today, if you ask me, we get applications from people, just, you know, because you mentioned the rainbow internship, from the LGBTQ community throughout the year. And we had a senior professional who has no dearth of opportunities, who had written, the moment the person thought of changing or looking out, had written to us. Did not fit like an exact domain, but we keep looking at mixed profiles, but this would have taken more time in our organization. And I think the person has decided to, you know, has got offers, has decided to, you know, join another organization, has written to me saying that, never forget, I will join you, right, the moment the opportunity arises. So we get these, you know, we had somebody writing from IIM, one of the IIM, saying that I'm going to graduate. But I would like to, you know, enroll for your roles. And our campus, you know, process was going to start only after a few months. And then I went to the product leaders. This person wanted to be in the product management group. And you know, my product leader is, but will they let go of their placement? So I went back to the person. I said, okay, will you let go of your placement if you get it here? He said, yes. We got the person interviewed. They actually, you know, were going to join us. Some of our organizations had deferred the campuses thing. Now they're, you know, so it got deferred. The person waited, and only after they were selected, everything was closed. I actually asked him, "How did you choose us?" And then they said that they followed me and, you know, Suresh and some of our people. And that's the power of inclusion. So if you see, data will tell you 75% of Gen Zs will go and check how inclusive your policies are. And it is not just the washroom, it's like everything. Because whatever you do for one community makes it inclusive for everyone else. And if people are really following, and if you have people from diverse talent groups who are speaking now, everybody thinks that this is going to be a better place for me. So in the war for talent, it is even more important. Right, your employees will make their decisions. It will not come from the DI officer. It will be about who they are referring and how they are being treated. Are your people really growing in that organization? Just to give them an entry is, I think, step -1. And I think that is being scrutinized very strongly with the groups.
Yeah, and it's also the other way around. Let me give you an example of something that a company shared. It's one of those companies where they have a test that they go through for all their employees. Now, to make this whole thing a little simple, let's say there were 10 questions, and everybody has to answer, and their cutoff is some 6 or 7, you know, answers, right answers. Only then you're called in for an interview. And so they went through this, and there was some person out of the bunch that took the exam who had a 3 on 10. Okay, and clearly didn't make the mark and would not have been interviewed. But somebody looked a little deeper and found that this person who got the 3 on 7 was actually the person that answered the questions that the rest of them got wrong. You get what I'm saying? So this person thought very differently from the rest of them. And the idea came up saying, if the rest of them think alike, if you're talking diversity, we need to get somebody who's thinking of the other 3 things that this group is missing out on. Because otherwise it's groupthink, right? So they said maybe there is a case to hire this person who, if you look through the traditional lens, would not have qualified. So it's, both ways. So all of these are examples. And how do you prove and what is the ROI? And these are questions that are constantly thrown. But it's very hard to prove this. But experiences tell us that this is how it is. And for all of us, we're all, I think, working somewhere or the other, and we attend events and social functions, etc. How do we feel included? Are you going to be in a social event where you don't feel accepted? Chances are that you will leave, and you will leave with a negative thought, right? It's the same thing for organizations. You're spending a large part of your life. Many times our identity is our job, right? And we all introduce ourselves saying, I'm so and so, and I work for this company. So it's such a strong bond that the organization can build to, to hold you and get your best work out of you, and for your self learning and growth as well. So it all has to be thought through.
So maybe I have a question. In terms of the research happening behind this area,
Mm-hmm.
is this something that Interweave is working on with other organizations where you're leading on this particular research on this topic?
Mm-hmm.
Because data is something that you've always talked about, and data is really powerful. So, is there something that you're already doing, or is it because there are already many leaders in this arena? And what have we done, each of us? Is there something that you can bring us all together and do some research on that data that is collected to show that these are the gaps, and this is where as globally where we could be going towards?
I wouldn't say that we are equipped right now to do that,
Okay.
but we can find the resources for you, right? So we can find you the right people who can help you with it. Because our thing is primarily more around helping organizations accept that these are things that you need to be doing. And once you do it, then you go find those specialists who can do that for you. Yeah, that we can do.
We participate in a lot of research work and showcases, and it's not going to be very easy because see, there are many Indias in India, and that's true for the corporate space as well. So you have the McKinsey report to start with, which I followed from 2015, I think. But there is enough amount of research that talks about the gaps and what organizations are truly doing with serious case studies. So there's enough out there for sure.
Yeah, and just to add to Mimi's thing, so from Interweave we started last year to look at actual empirical research. So one of the research that we have done across the country in 5 cities, which we are still, the report is getting prepared, is about how women's careers are impacted through hybrid working, positively and with challenges. So that we have done covering live interviews with about 1,000 ladies across the country, and that should be ready to be shared soon. So that is one part. The other part is about organizations coming together and then pooling in their best practices or their experiences, which has not really taken off in a big way. But that is something also that few of our partners have been talking to us, saying that why don't we start some kind of a format where even if it is 10 companies to start with, let us start with 10 companies. So that will be something also that we will be launching.
And the conference itself gives a lot of that information actually.
Madam, rather than a question, I think it is my observation. Of course, you can take it as you have an inclusive design for the people who are working at a single roof in a one setup. For that, you have a solutions. Do you have a solutions for the people who are working in the field, executives, marketing representatives, so many people? So the equal number of posts. maybe the organization is having a part of their employees working in the office and part of the employees working outside the in the field. So what type of designer, what type of suggestions and what type of precautions that you want to give it to those? Because it is also a part of inclusive design. What I mean is, so according to the observations, what I have understood from all this conversation, that now you are giving a solution for the employees working under the one single roof in a one single setup. So just come out of this box and also think of the people who are working in the field also.
Absolutely. It has to be everywhere that
Yeah.
has to be inclusive and public spaces. Now, India doesn't have a great story on that, and I have known a couple of friends who had children with disabilities who migrated out of the country because they said this country will not provide opportunities for my children, right? I personally know them and they've moved only for that reason. Now, we don't want our talent moving away like that.
Migration of talent.
Yes. Yeah, and this is very specific
Yeah.
because they said the country
We
is
have
not.
to retain our talent for our benefit of our country.
Yes, absolutely. So
Absolutely.
this is something that the government also needs to work on, and we are advocating for it. So once all of this becomes mainstream conversations, all of this will start getting. We have to start somewhere, right? So we start with organizations, and organizations are important. I always believe vehicles of social transformation. Because what is society? It's all people who are working in these organizations. So if organizations make this something that they will do, it will equally have to happen outside as well. How people get to work, for example. Now, a person with a disability can't get into a typical taxi. They don't have place to keep their wheelchair and things like that. Now, there are taxis that are available, but they end up paying more to use that service, which is not fair. Now, is there some way in which this can be taken care of? And I know in the UK, apparently, they have mandated that all taxis have to be friendly for people with disabilities, which then means that, I may not be a person with this, but I could be on one particular day that I've, damaged my knee because I hit against something. For me, also that is what is designing for inclusion. It should happen. It's not an easy thing at all. I mean, we still have people that are not fully convinced about why we should have diverse people at work. We are still working with one bunch like that, while we are also talking of the next step. Right? So it is, changing mindsets is the hardest. I wish some digital transformation work can be done.
Hi, Anjali. So, are there any major trends that you're observing, let's say in the last year, considering there's been a lot of, in the global scenario, there's been a lot of changes, there was a recession, a lot of that. So, are there any major trends in DNI that you're observing?
Okay, so there is this conversation that DEI budgets, training budgets will get cut, etc. But I don't fully believe in that. I think this is here to stay. Also because there is a certain regulatory framework that's asking for some of this, because sustainability is vital. So from that angle, this is not something that we can shortchange and say, okay, there's not enough money, so let's not do DEI this year, we'll pick it up next year. You can't do that because this is a journey that has to be gone through. You can't break it in between and say, we'll restart it when we have the resources. Because this is all about ensuring a prosperous, equitable, inclusive world.
So I can add to some of the trends, Anju, for you. I think the conversation has moved away from tokenism. Like there will be organization which will do it for, as a token, this thing. But I think for the scrutiny and for the conversation we just had, people are looking at how authentic you are, right? People are looking, and there is a clear, observation. So you will see people vocally talking about organizations and even consulting organizations or more on how are they behaving in totality, right? Not just in a certain effort, right? So we for my planning, I will never do a subject that's only a cultural moment thing, everything. So the mandate for my team, the BRGs as we call it, is what are you doing through the year? So we look at a year's plan at the beginning and then see, okay, you cannot always make noise. Like we have 6 different BRGs. There's multi-generation, there's caregivers, there's all of the topics that we spoke about, and well-being. So you will pick some high decibel moments so that you're able to bring resources and everything together. But throughout the year, there needs to be work around it. There needs to be also something that's a measurable impact. Like for example, in my organization, when we talk globally, how has anything changed? Like Vishakha has brought in so many participants, we've done like everything that we could think of, etc. Has it truly changed? So when we look at an example where people are asking to have trans and gender non-binary trainees in their account, and right, like a trainee, when we work with the Periphery Tweet Foundation, they come with varied backgrounds. Like we had 2 lawyers in the batch last year, and one was doing a Scrum Master internship, one was doing a talent acquisition role, right? They're both getting confirmed, by the way, this year. And some of it is so technical, but the fact that they were asked for and they were accepted is where the organization, that particular piece of the organization they went to, was reverse mentored. Now, if you're not able to see that change, then it's not worked, right? So beyond that, and I'm just picking on topics, beyond what Nimi said, right? For disability, right? Are we really looking at invisible disability? Are we looking at equipping people to promote people with disability? So in my organization, I have one person with disability who also, reverse mentored me. Specifically, who rat holes conversations, who's very, limited in thinking or context within the organization. And my mandate to some of our leaders is, let's groom this person. You've done the easier job of running, with a person who already had some of these qualities. Let's do it for the next person who has challenges, skill gaps, etc. Communication is not there. Gets in. So the first time we had this person, the person came in one of our workshops with family. Now what happened is I had to, at some point of time, coach the person to say, if you're going to, you're not that dependent on your family to move. If you want to be inclusive and not actually look after your children and your wife in a conference, then you will have to make friends with, the rest of them, and just see if they'll help you. And the person took a leap of faith and is now traveling different cities on their own, and now has become like a person that's more well networked and understood, right? So there is a lot of these deeper work that is happening in organizations, and this is for everyone else to see, right? Like I might be talking about cases here, but it's not the stories that we are talking internally everywhere. But these stories are important. The measure, so every year when you showcase something, you have to show quantitative, impact of things. I think that has got very deep rooted. People are asking these questions, like data demographics, right? There's always this battle of, will you, allow the data of LGBTQI people with disabilities more publicly out or not, right? What happens to changing governments and looking at people getting sued for discrimination just because you've collected this data. But the fact is that if you cannot improve what you can't measure. So the measurement and demographics has become so much more important, right? Like I would have spoken more about data last year than a lot of my HR colleagues, and that's the change in the trend that at least I have been observing from, let's say, 5 or more than years back.
Yeah, couple of things I wanted to add more at a little macro level. So one is there is frameworks which are emerging from statutory bodies or investors like ESG or the India government's guideline for responsible business conduct. Now that document which SEBI has brought out is applicable, mandated for 1,000 companies with the highest market cap in the country, which covers a lot of companies. So they have to start implementing. And that document mandates 9 pillars, and a lot of it is about the diversity and inclusion and the social responsibility of organizations. So that is given as a trend, a lot of conversation around it and a lot of seriousness. Because now these companies have to report to the government what is their status. whether it is gender inclusion, whether it is LGBTQ, whether it is also employee health and safety. Now there is a framework to actually report it and also year on year see how you are progressed. And now the government has started with the top 1,000 companies, but it's only a matter of time, how it settles down and it percolates to all the companies. And similarly for investment, ESG and the S of the ESG is becoming very, very important. So that is one trend which is driving this at a very, very, not just as a DEI agenda or an HR agenda, but as a business agenda. Second thing is, if you look at consumers and employees who are outside the organization, there is also, especially the younger generation, you touched upon the Gen Z, they are very particular. So there are enough cases, if you see, that companies get cancelled. People say, I won't use this company's product because what they stand for, I don't agree with. They are not inclusive. They don't respect their consumer. They don't respect their employees. They've taken this particular stance. We will boycott their products or we will not join them. So that kind of a trend. Earlier, activism was only with NGOs or a group of people. Now, every individual feels that they can make an impact, and that is another trend. And that will also have an impact on how we do it.
Can I just say that even the media houses are actually in that, right? Like if you change your version over time, there are people watching and who are also commenting. So it makes everything, way more responsible and accountable than it was before.
Firstly, I'm really liking this entire conversation. It's definitely giving me a lot of ideas, as well as an element of reassurance of we as an organization.
And I introduce yourself so that everybody.
So we as an organization, the kind of questions we are asking internally, are they really worth the time and effort? My name is Aman Ji. I represent Sterling Resorts. I'm sure a few of you might have stayed at one of our properties across the country. We are a chain of 50 resorts, growing rapidly, should be 75 end of next year. I head corporate HR for Sterling Resorts. A few submissions and more of ideas from all that everyone was sharing. 3 words: looking in, looking out, looking beyond. So at Sterling, we are looking in a lot. We are at a phase where looking in is important. I'm sure Publicis Sapient is going to be one such example that I would quote to make a point somewhere in some shape and form. But we're definitely looking in. An interesting conversation from yesterday's leadership meeting. We have 49 resorts. We have 49 GMs who are managing each of the resorts. And we have 3 RMs, one level below, resort managers, who are female resort managers. And then the question is, okay, who do we promote? Right? Because there is a requirement. There's a new resort that's coming up. And whoever is ready gets to move to this new resort and head the resort. So when we say looking in, this is the looking in aspect. Who do we promote is a question we know we have to answer. There is one side which is telling, oh, she may not be mobile. Will she be able to manage people who are 56, 57, 59 in your resort? Because we are a 37-year-old company. And will she be able to manage a younger generation? Or she is a doctor. She may have her own stereos in mind. Will she be able to manage all other facets? So there is this one side which is trying to tell why this is not possible. And on the other side, there is a set of employees, apparently male employees, who are telling, why don't you give it a try? Why assume? At the max, one may make it happen, and then you'll be super surprised. So every day, we are seeing a lot of such conversations that are happening in our organizations, where we are trying to break these studios. And I definitely see that a lot of places are resonating with similar practices, ideas. Looking out, there are many players in this industry today, which is hospitality, which is talking D&I, inclusion by design. So we did feel that it's time that it's not just about a industry, it's about inclusion. Right? So let's step forward, let's make a small move and talk about it in public as much as. And looking beyond this, hoping to create some best practices that will have the rest of the world pick up on.
So we have the COO of BIA, Bangalore International Airport, who will speak about, it's a very awarded airport with a lot of amenities that many others don't have in terms of facilities for people with disabilities, for young parents traveling with children, etc., etc. So, public spaces have to get better at it as well.
Emanate.
Any other thoughts, questions? We'll see you at the conference then.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you very much for making the time and for your interest. Do spread the word, because to people that can make a difference. We really do want influencers and people that can make a difference being part of this conversation. It's a long journey still. Thank you very much, and thanks Vishaka for your always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you.